Mum, there's an elephant in the garden. By Nanny Linda. August Dunkley awoke in the night to an unfamiliar noise. His bedroom floor was vibrating and shaking all of his toys. It frightened him so much that he pulled the quilt right over his head and squeezed his eyes as tight as he could as he lay huddled in his little bed. He kept hearing a sound like a trumpet which played without having any tune. August thought it could be a dog or a fox howling at the moon. When he awoke in the morning, he heard his dad moan and shout, "What has happened to my garden? The shed's collapsed and the plants have been pulled out." August and his mum went running and looked out of the kitchen door and saw great big holes everywhere, and all that was left of the shed was the floor. The garden gate was broken, so was most of the wall. It looked like a bulldozer had been through it, or it had been flattened with a wrecking ball. Luckily, August's daddy had 3 brothers who all came and helped clear up the mess, and within a few days it was all tidy again, and the shed repaired, more or less. The roof appeared to be missing. They couldn't find it anywhere. It was as if it had just vanished, disappearing into thin air. A few weeks went by, then one warm summer's night, when August had his window open wide, he heard the noise and felt the vibration again, but this time he didn't hide. He jumped out of his bed and went to his window and on tiptoes looked down at the ground. And there he saw in the garden an elephant stomping around. And it was eating all of the new plants that his dad had recently put in, wandering around quite happily, trumpeting and making quite a din. Nobody else seemed to be hearing the noise. August stood in wonder and awe. He was really looking at an elephant, standing proud and very tall. "Get out of here," shouted August, "or you'll be caught and put in a zoo. Go back to where you've been living. Hurry, I won't tell on you." As soon as his dad shouted in the morning, August knew the reason why and casually looked into the garden while his dad swore and let out a cry. August looked at his mother and said in a very casual voice, "It looks like it's been trampled by an elephant and Dad's plants are its food of choice." "Oh, August," said his mum, "the garden is again in such an awful mess. And your poor dad is so angry and sad, and it's going to be more expense." They spoke with the neighbours and folks living nearby, but no one had heard a thing. It only seemed to be their garden where all the damage was all happening. 2 whole months passed by without any disturbance in the night, until late September there was an incident when August received such a fright. "Hello, hello," came a trumpet sound, and then tapping on the window pane. "August, are you awake? It's me, Vlad, your elephant friend." This time August didn't hesitate and went running to wake up his mum and dad. Mum, there's an elephant in our garden, and he knows my name, and he's called Vlad." It took a lot of persuading to get his mum and dad to drag themselves from their bed, but eventually they both went to August's room and looked out of the window and said, "I don't believe it. What's going on? There's an elephant in the garden walking about." August stood on his bedside chair and gave his new friend Vlad a wave and a shout. "Stay there, Vlad, we're coming," said August as he ran down the stairs 2 at a time, skidding into the kitchen and threw open the door and was greeted by Farmer Tom Ryan. August's mum was still shouting and screeching, and his dad, armed with the poker, stood on guard. "I'm so sorry about this," said Tom Ryan, "but Vlad keeps escaping his yard. I rescued him from a circus when he was still so very small. He gets on well with children and noticed August over the wall. I thought it was fenced secure and safe, as I don't want him living in a zoo. But Vlad is such a smart, strong animal, he must have found a weak spot and squeezed through. He always showed affection for my children, and we have kept him a secret for many years now. Do you think you could come and visit him, August? Then he might stop trying to get out." Tom Ryan then offered to pay for all the damage caused by Vlad's escapade, and as they were all animal lovers, a suitable agreement was made. August never ever mentioned the fact that Vlad had spoken and called him by name, and they became the very best of friends, with August visiting him over and over again. As Farmer Tom Ryan got older, he worried about Vlad's future care, as his children had grown up and chosen careers, and their visits home were so very rare. So he reached an agreement with August that he would inherit the farm and the land. Caring for Vlad was a weight off his mind, and they shook hands on their adventurous plan. So the months eventually turned to years, and August lived with Vlad on the farm, working the land for an income, and Vlad happily kept to his yard, free from harm. August completed a project, an amazing new home for Vlad, with a huge watering hole for him to bathe in, and walkways across all of the farmland. And when they were together, and knew nobody else could hear, Vlad would speak to August, and playfully trumpet softly in his ear. But August knew that to complete Vlad's happiness, a companion should be found, so he spent many hours surfing the internet, and also eyes and ears on the ground. He made preparations and did research to obtain the correct paperwork, including animal licenses and wildlife laws, and changing the farm into an animal reserve. One day August received a message that a female elephant required a new home. Her name was Indiana, and she was travelling all the way from Rome. It was definitely a match made in heaven. Vlad and Indiana got along so very well, and her keeper that travelled with her was an Italian goddess called Mirelle, who stayed on at the farm for a couple of months to help Indiana settle in. And she too had travelled on a one-way ticket, so maybe a second romance would begin.